Hello, everybody, and happy Friday to you. A difficult Friday, a difficult day. Y'all probably, most all of you watching this, like us, were probably rocked with the news of dirt late model racing legend Scott Bloomquist passing away this morning in a tragic airplane accident on his farm in Tennessee. I'm joined with Jesse and Joshua here on the Hunt the Front podcast, and we really didn't know what to do. I guess we were probably all in shock like everybody else, wouldn't you say, fellas?
Yeah. Shocking. I mean, it's the internet these days. You don't know what's true and what's not, right? And you start seeing it pop up on Facebook, and I got a few calls and texts. First I'm like, that's not can't be true, and pretty. I mean, it's wild how quickly it was essentially confirmed. Not something you'd expect, but no, it's shocking news. I was trying to think about, to me, it's probably the single biggest news event in our sport, right? Like dirt late model dirt track, maybe pretty big in all of dirt track racing and fairly big in motorsports in general, but certainly for those of us who are specifically fans or participants, media, whatever way we participate in dirt late model racing like we do, this is probably the biggest single news thing, event ever, we've witnessed in our sport. So it's shocking,
I guess,
to say the least.
We should start off by saying, our thoughts, prayers, condolences to the Bloomquist family and all those close to him, affected by him. And it's crazy how that includes a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, there's very immediate people to him that we're thinking about, but then it's just weird how everyone in the dirt late model racing community is shocked and I guess devastated. Almost, that would be the word to use, but it's crazy. I guess we didn't really know what to do. We had obviously plans for today. We were going to put out a podcast on Patreon, so we were planning to sit down here and record that, and we had a video scheduled to go out on our YouTube, the Hunt the Front YouTube channel. I feel like we're probably going to hold that maybe until tomorrow. And so we didn't really know what to do. And probably like a lot of you, we were just sort of dumbfounded. And I guess we just decided to sit down and talk for a minute about Scott and our memories of him, because I think most of the three of us originally with Scott, we came to him as fans, right?
Oh yeah.
And then for me and Jesse, somewhat Joshua, as competitors, viewed him in that light. And then Joshua, you got to view him as you being a member of the media. So it's funny how, for me, basically my whole life from very young, since I can remember, was dirt track racing. And there wasn't a moment that I didn't know and associate that with Scott Bloomquist. And it's just, I don't know, just like I said, shocking and crazy to think that he's gone and what, just hard to process, I guess.
Yeah. I woke up and it was like, had blowed up text messages, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I got on Facebook, and like Joshua said, you don't ever know what to believe anymore out of social media, like in what's true, but it's like, this is real. Like, this is insane. And like, out of all the big, there's been a lot of breaking news in dirt late model racing with the car guy, house car drivers swapping around and stuff. But this one is, this one tops them by a long shot.
And just a totally different, I don't know. I don't remember the last time I felt like something like that made, I don't know, was that shock and devastation at the same time, I guess. Just,
and to be clear, it's not like, like, I don't think any of us knew Scott like really well. I would consider, us, that we were close to Scott, by any means, but it's just, it's so many emotions, right? Like, whether you're close to him or not, like, it's just, it's tough to process. Like, you don't know, how to, it's like, it's, on top of that, had some, the news, last weekend, a racer at our local track, passed away had a medical issue while racing. All that's, it's just, man, it's a lot of mixed emotions, right? Like, and certainly not, I don't know, just trying to process it is tough. And but Scott was a huge figure, will always be, obviously his legend will live on, right? But he was larger than life, I think, figure in dirt late model racing. And kind of dirt late model racing to me is, I think our sport took a step, that it wouldn't have taken without him, right? And it was a step that came over time, but him being involved and being the larger than life figure he was, gave the superstar, that our sport, I think every sport or every, any kind of entertainment thing, needs to grow, right? Someone to move the needle, in the sport, and by being there, right?
Yeah.
As far as interest in the sport. And that's what Scott did, right? Like he gave young fans, when they show up at the racetrack and see his merchandise as you're walking in the grandstands with the all the
No
cool,
weak links.
yeah, I think back to our early days in racing and seeing it, but like a kind of like something to gravitate toward, right? And then if you really followed it, you either liked him or hated him, right? Type
Yeah.
situation, love him or hate him type deal. But at the end of the day, he's keeping you intrigued and connected to the sport, just by being there. So
Yeah.
that I don't think it can be stated, estimated, or even figured how important that was to our sport and to it growing like it did, and has, right? Like, we're still obviously a niche sport and not huge by any means, but the audiences and the fans, and even participants, I think there would be less if not for Scott Bloomquist and the impact that he had on our sport.
Todd, I was just looking over at chat, and Todd in chat says it feels like when Kobe died.
Yeah.
And honestly, a little bit like when I was gonna say when Dale Earnhardt died. Honestly,
I've been sitting here thinking, I've been thinking about Dale Earnhardt, and I feel like that is what Bloomquist was for the dirt racing, the dirt late model world. Like, he is our Dale Earnhardt, and it's just. And here's the thing, man. We still talk about Dale Earnhardt. He's still, NASCAR's greatest of all time, and a legend. He's a legend. He'll never die.
Still impactful.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's, I'm sure, the way Scott will be, for our sport. It's man, it's just crazy. Like I said a minute ago, I don't remember dirt track racing. I don't remember not having dirt track racing, right? Because it's been a part of my life since I can remember, and I don't remember my first associations of dirt track racing was Scott Bloomquist in the newspapers, the motorsports newspapers that we used to get in the 90s. Yeah, Motorsports Weekly. And then and so he was kind of already this huge figure. And then I think it was I think the 98 National 100, I think, when we went up there, Joshua, me, you, and Daddy.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Pennington, I think, won, and Bloomquist was second, I believe. But obviously, we went up there expecting we're going to see Scott Bloomquist for the first time, and it just was, one of my earliest memories of a superstar-like figure, just seeing, this huge rig and all these people gathered around it wanting to see him, and all his T-shirts, and literally had ropes around the back of his car to keep people back. It just, I don't know. To me, that's one of my, I don't know, one of the things that made me want to be, not only made me a huge fan of dirt late model racing, but made me want to be somebody in dirt late model racing, was seeing Scott and that massive impact he had, that early on in my experience with dirt track racing. Just, man, crazy.
It is. I think that the first time I've ever seen Bloomquist was at the National. I don't know what year. It wasn't 98. I wasn't there for that. But it was definitely the National one. That's one thing I love about the National 100 is back in the day, it brought in those guys like me and you, Jonathan. Joshua, you were traveling and doing all your interviews and meeting all these top tier dirt late model drivers and Hall of Famers and whatnot. But that was our, only chance to really get to see these guys as the National 100. And And that's where, I got to see Bloomquist for my first time, race. And that's a big deal. It was a big deal back then.
Absolutely.
Just, damn. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, damn.
That would it might have been the year Daddy drove his probably when he came from Charlotte afterwards, probably like might have been 2010, 2011, I don't remember, but came from Charlotte on Sunday, and y'all remember when Daddy drove his rig? Y'all were up at what year would that have been? 09, 10?
Oh, it was 2009 when you're talking about our
The
dad,
World
our
Finals.
father,
Yeah.
Dirt Daddy,
Yeah.
as he's known on our YouTube channel, drove Bloomquist's hauler from the World Finals at Charlotte to East Alabama Motor Speedway, or helped tag teamed it with whoever was driving the rig then. They had to drive overnight from Charlotte to East Alabama Motor Speedway for the National 100, and the guy had been working all day and didn't know if he could do it or whatever. So they ended up, like, Daddy drove most of the way, pulling Scott's driving his rig. Yeah, that was a crazy experience. Didn't even really know that was going to happen, and then all of a sudden Scott was, Daddy was there, and we were kind of there hanging around or whatever with Scott. Daddy was crewing with him, and come find out he needed someone to help drive the rig, and there he was doing it. That was a crazy experience. I guess it kind of gives you an idea of how off the cuff Scott was there with his program. Joshua, I know you had a lot more experiences with him in the media side of things, covering racing for Dirt on Dirt and then Flow. What's I guess maybe a memory that sticks out with you with Scott?
Well, first of all, just then covering Scott Bloomquist, and it was probably around that time because that was my first big race that I covered for Dirt on Dirt, was that year of the World Finals. I guess it would have been 09.
That was 09.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And interviewing him and thinking, like, he was, again, there's a lot of big name drivers, right? I mean, at that time, still World Finals is huge and all of them are there, but like, Scott was it, right? Like he was, none of the others really had, like starstruck feeling for me, watching, trying to ask Scott questions and not get caught up in the, the fandom of it. I never really experienced that, but with Scott, it kind of did, or had a little, there's a little intimidation factor from him being as big of a deal as he was. But, then to be honest, like he was a really good interview, right? Like he always, I think he understood the importance of media clearly, and understood by that point, Dirt on Dirt was getting really big in our sport, and he knew how to use that kind of to his advantage, right? But I remember interviewing him there at the World Finals. I don't remember specifically what it was about, but I can think, an example that stands out to me of Scott knowing how to, I don't say manipulate media, but how to use it to his advantage is, I remember we were at Jackson Motor Speedway for a Lucas Oil race there, probably the only one they've had there. Joseph was there, as a matter of fact, racing. This was
2012.
Yeah, something like that. And Scott wasn't having a good year. It was like April, late spring time frame. And Scott had, maybe it was a little later, maybe it was like May, I don't remember, but Scott had kind of struggled. And there was this, and he kind of was just, I don't say he was an afterthought by any means, but he wasn't as competitive as, he had been struggling a bit on the competitive, and is like, he knew how to shake it up, right, and get the attention back to him. He missed the show, I think, or something, and didn't have a provisional, and didn't even take his emergency provisional. So I interviewed him. He said in the interview, how he was, just like he implied that he was going to drop off the Lucas Oil Tour. And I don't even remember. I don't think anyone knew who won the race that night, because the next day, all the news, is Scott Bloomquist is, dropping off Lucas Oil, right? Like, and that was just Scott, how he knew kind of, and, to manipulate the news and get, hit the attention. But
it's because he was bigger. Like he was,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
He didn't have to do anything.
Right.
Like, he didn't have to worry about how to do it. Yeah.
But I just think about like the thing at if you think about Cedar Lake, and I wasn't there, but I think it might have been it might have been 09, 10, somewhere in that neighborhood, where he went off the track, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but he came from the back and half the crowd is booing him, and and he, oh, you love me, right? And that
Mhm.
Tennessee
I
ass
definitely
whooping.
have heard that
Yeah.
that soundbite quite a bit.
And that was Scott, like in a nutshell. Is he I think he thrived on that a little bit, right? Like being a lightning rod of attention. But he also knew how to, like Scott knew that was gonna. I think in his, he probably knew that was gonna be end up a sound bite, like you said, and stay
Mhm.
around for a while. And then just his dominance, right? Like, obviously he hasn't, the last few years he's, when he has raced has not been as dominant as he was. But man, there was a time, like what year, wasn't that long ago, he came from, got sent to the back at Eldora for the Windonet issue
Iconic.
Mhm.
and comes from the back, right? Passes the field.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd have looked. Like, it wasn't early, like it was like, he came from, not only did he come from the back to win a crown jewel race at Eldora, I think it was the world. But he did it, he didn't start there, right? Like, it was laps into the
Yeah.
race and a
That's
shortened time frame.
that's the show was over.
Show was over.
Yeah, show
The
was
show was
over. And
over.
Would've
I
lapped
remember
the
I was
field.
I was gonna lap the field.
Yeah.
I
Or
was
whatever.
there. I was there covering that race, and that was the thought. Like he's leading early, and it's like he could lap the field. I don't
Yeah.
remember who it was I was talking to, but when they put him to the back, first of all, it's like, what is going on? You're trying to figure out, what's happening, and the announcers explained that unapproved part or whatever they called it, and he got sent to the back, and it's like he's gonna come back and win it, right? Like that was,
Mhm.
and he takes off and is passing cars, and like, yeah, he's gonna come, and sure enough, he did. So with time to spare, if I remember correctly. So that's definitely, Scott was, again, larger in life, not only larger than life because in our sport, not only because of his personality and the brand, it's yeah, and that's something worth mentioning too, is like he was the original brand in dirt track racing. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
obviously, we've built, Hunt the Front into a brand, now, all these series, Lucas Oil Series, World of Outlaws is a brand. They are brands. Even
Yeah.
like tracks have this idea of a brand, like Fairbury Falls, right? It's a brand, right? And drivers now, are really, that's kind of the goal, is to become just more than just a racer and build yourself into a brand, to draw fans and sell merchandise. Well, Scott was the original, right? Like that,
Absolutely.
and probably will be the biggest for forever. And which is kind of wild that I would argue that his brand it's bigger than any series, bigger than any track.
Have you seen his merch trailer?
Right. Like,
Yeah,
it's
still, even
when he's not racing,
yeah.
it's one of those things where he's, that's how he was, how big he was, is, like he is the biggest thing in our sport, right?
Yeah.
And will be for it, perhaps for as long as the sport exists, maybe,
Yeah.
if
Well,
but for definitely a long time.
there's just so much influence. Like you talk about he was the first to sort of build himself into a brand. Like I said, I'll never forget the no weak links. On the trailer and the yin yang, and the skull and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
Like he's so, like you said, so many guys, ourselves included, have followed that. But how many people has he influenced racers actually on the track and that have learned from what he's done and been driven to be better by him. It's just I don't know. I don't think there's any way to understand the influence, the impact that he had. I mean, we can talk about it and all, but it's huge. He was definitely, we wouldn't be where we are without him. The sport as a whole. I mean, there's obviously
Right.
taken a lot of people, and a lot of impactful people, but he was one of the most impactful,
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
And so one thing, like, so I was thinking about this, like how important he was to the sport, and tried to, thinking it back to the 90s and early 2000s, and, how, if we didn't have, like, so sprint car racing had the benefit, and I'm not saying it was like they don't, the Kensers and Dells and all that didn't, put sprint car racing on the, trajectory to be as big as it is. And we didn't kind of ride the coattails. But really, I don't think, like, dirt late model racing didn't have TV, right? It was barely on TV, whereas sprint car racing was on
TNN.
TNN, right?
Yeah.
And, Enzo World of Outlaws was a big deal, and I think it grew because of that. But I think, we needed. I think that's where Scott stepped in. His personality, his brand, his superstardom, right? And brought people into our sport, right? Like he was just a magnet for interest,
Yeah.
and so you show up at a dirt track because you're a dirt race. Like, you got to remember, dirt late model racing wasn't necessarily, as like the sport of dirt late model or dirt racing in general was a lot different, 20 years ago, and in the 90s and early 2000s, and having someone like Scott to really draw fans into dirt, specifically dirt late models, I think probably helped elevate dirt late model racing to where it became one of the premier, uh, divisions of our sport, right? Like, and put it on a level with sprint car racing, for as far as how big it is. And, I don't, we can have that in a whole nother debate, but maybe even bigger now. And I don't think,
agree.
That perhaps doesn't happen without Scott Bloomquist bringing in all the fans and interest that he did, right? He paved the way for our sport to grow as big as it did, or he helped it grow as big as he did, and paved the way for, legends in the making, or the guys now like Bobby Pierce and Jonathan Davenport, and, the guys who are, building their own legend now, right? I don't know that would have been possible, without Scott Bloomquist, what he did for our sport and the stage that he put it on.
Absolutely. It's crazy to think about going to, like, we're going to Sonoya tomorrow. There's going to be people at thousands at Batesville. A lot of people from our area going to Why Not, to the Street Stock Nationals, you name it, tracks across the country, dirt tracks. Just going to be a weird feeling. I don't care, where you are, especially going to be a weird feeling at Eldora in a few weeks at the World. I don't know. I would say I was almost brought to tears. Like, I don't know. I was in shock at first when I was reading it and didn't believe it, that kind of thing. And it just sort of been a slow, gradual grasping of it to this morning. It's going to be, I guarantee you Flo's going to have something. There's going to be tribute, missing man. I'm going to have a hard time. There's going to be there ain't going to be a dry eye in the house whenever, tribute, missing man, whatever they do. That's just going to be tough.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Man, I didn't even thought about that, but I'm sure. That's the. I don't say perfect because I don't want to say that, but they're going to do. I can imagine that's going to be. I'm sure the folks at Flo and Eldora media team and everybody, for the World, there will be something, very moving. I'll say at least. I'm sure they're already, kind of thinking about and, way to honoring him, and what better place to do it than, one of the track that, helped, I'd say that stardom, right? Like, kind of came together, Eldora and Scott Bloomquist. That'd be a good, that'd be fitting to say the least when we go there in a few weeks. So.
Well, I don't know. It's just a crazy day. I can't think of anything else that would have made us totally stop what
we're doing.
We were doing, totally change our plans. Like I said, we were intending to record a podcast this morning over on Patreon. So, here we are talking about this instead. We had a video ready to go out on the main YouTube channel, just us doing our thing in the shop yesterday, getting ready for Sonoya. I think we'll hold that till tomorrow. Just doesn't seem right putting it out today. It just didn't seem right doing anything other than talking about Scott and processing. And it's just weird because I felt like there's been moments, Kobe, we mentioned that earlier, 9/11, and I don't mean to, that's different, whatever, but just moments where I just wanted to turn on TV and hear what people were saying about it. And that's kind of how I felt about this. I just wanted, to hear what people were saying. And it's been cool to read these comments as we've been streaming here. And every time you open Facebook, someone else is posting something about Scott, a memory, a feeling. One interesting. Go ahead.
I got one.
Was that
this?
That PRI?
PRI
2 years ago. Yeah, or not this year, but last year.
So
PRI.
Fill us in on that, Jesse. That was interesting.
I have another story. Okay, so that was PRI probably 2, maybe 3 years ago. Probably 2 years ago.
It was 2022 PRI because
you were trying to get him to run the Hunt the Front series.
Yeah.
So run our series.
We were sitting there at the hotel booth, whatever, in the restaurant/bar, and here he comes walking by, and we're like, we gotta get him on the tour. We had just announced it that day, and Jesse Hall's butt just yelling, Scott,
Scott.
and then that picture he ended up taking with the one that he showed you.
And then
I'm sorry, we interrupted you.
My other story is maybe 2 years ago at the World, or was it a year ago? No, I don't know. At the World, he was. Yeah.
Listen,
I
know where this is
It
going.
was pretty late at night. I done kind of forgot, the some of the story, but I'm going through the pits at I don't know, wee hours. I was having a good time. It was pretty late. I go by and there's Scott standing there in this. I mean, they were hideous. I don't even know what they were. There was his pajamas,
The pajama pants.
Yeah, the pajamas. Like it's like 2 a.m. at Eldora, and he's just hanging out, having him a drink, and got these hideous breeches on or whatever. And I don't know. I walked by and I said something, and crap, I don't remember what I said. Something about I like your pajamas, and he's like, I don't ever take them off other than when I'm naked. I was like,
good one, Scott. Good to know.
And I ran back to the trailer and told all y'all the story.
Yeah, I remember you. Y'all ain't gonna believe what
like,
Scott just told me.
Scott's back there in some hideous pajamas. Like it was just. I won't forget that. That was funny.
Yeah. Do you remember when he came to Southern, Joshua?
Oh, I do.
Jesse,
yeah,
you
that
might
was a big
remember.
deal.
I don't remember that. I might have been.
In the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
01, 02, maybe 03.
Were you racing then,
I think I might have been.
Yeah.
I think I might have been. My little bit of dabbling in super late model racing, but it's just that was the only thing that I would compare to it is when Tony Stewart showed up, the first time to Southern Raceway. Just everybody talking about it, everybody showing up. But the first time it fogged out or what? It's something I can't remember. But then he came back the next year.
I think I want to say he ran second or third.
Second, Bolin.
Mike was that the one Rodney Wing led to like the last 5 laps and had a right rear go down?
The main thing I remember about it was Scott Bloomquist being there. Honestly, don't remember the winner. You just remember the Bloomquist game.
I just remember back then Southern Raceway. It's better now, but had a knack for rubbering, and they just rode around in a line for 100 laps. Like you're expecting Scott Bloomquist, man, Scott Bloomquist surely he's going to do something, but even he can't.
Work those
get out of the rubber. But it was cool him being there. I do remember that. Yeah.
How about Joseph? Joseph's I think you won a race since then, if I'm right, Jesse. But Joseph's latest win over Bloomquist at Alltech. That's
And here's something that about him. Like Friday night, he goes out there, not very good, doesn't make the show, I don't think. Then he goes and tests. This is just how smart, he is and how creative. And go ahead.
All right. So Craig, one of our series officials for the Hunt the Front Super Dirt series, I say he shared a post. I don't know. I thought I screenshotted it because I was going to send it to y'all and I didn't, but he basically, he says, talking about Scott, we were at Alltech this year. He went out after the races Friday night in practice, which made a bunch of people mad. He did it without permission from the series, of course. When I asked him about it, all he said was that it was a senior citizen plan. That Friday, earlier that night, it was a doubleheader at Alltech. Earlier that night, he couldn't have drove the car out of a wet paper sack, much less out of the corner. He didn't make the show, right? On the Friday night. Mm-hmm. So we're all standing around afterward, and all of a sudden there's a race car on the track, and it's Scott out there testing, and everybody's like, "What's he doing?" So come to qualifying Saturday night, and I don't remember whether he was quick time overall or just quick time in his group or whatever it was, but he came across the scales, and I said, "Hell of a senior citizen plan." He was grinning ear to ear and said, "Got him." And he went and run second after not making the show
in a 15,000 win.
In a 15,000 win race.
That's funny. I saw it watching chat over here earlier. Someone pointed out that said how many Scott Bloomquist rules have been made, right? Like how many rules have been made specifically.
We made one for our series that night.
For our series, well, not that night, but the next week we put out a rule bulletin. That literally said that you could not hold a post-race test session unless it was announced earlier in the night, and I can't remember exactly how it worded, and everyone had the opportunity to, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, just to clarify, we did not know that was a track decision, to allow him out there. I am the one who went and shut him down, once we realized what was going on, and, drivers came up complaining about it. But yeah, I think that's Scott. He knew how to push the rules, push the envelope. Eldora having the, what do you call it, the window net inserts, right? And which
How about
could have cost him the win, but
how about the trip to the hospital and then the win in was that 2018? Maybe
Yeah.
I can't even remember. That was a crazy one. The drug test and all, and the trip to the hospital, and then he won. That was
it's
always
like,
something.
Scott, if there was some crazy thing that happened in dirt late model racing, right? Like that, or the window net and having to go to the back, it was like, okay, yeah, that's Scott, right? Like it was, like he was just there was always crazy things happening.
No green light, no
green. Oh yeah, we didn't mention that. Like,
there's so many
yeah.
things. It's crazy.
That one's crazy.
So many sound bites, so many legendary, iconic moments with
one thing that
with
stands
Scott.
out to me that we haven't mentioned, and I'll say as I think is important to say as well, is there used to be this debate between who was the greatest, who is the GOAT, right?
Moyer or Bloomquist.
And I think the thing about Scott is he was for so long, like so good for so long, right? Like, what was it last year? He won at Eldora was
18,
right? Like, and goes back to the early 90s, so he had like his longevity. And I mean, he ran second at our race. He was competitive. Competitive at Charlotte at the World Finals, was that fast time or whatever last year. Like, I think if in a situation had improved, found a situation that worked, he could have been competitive again. But that's just a testament to his legend is also helped by how long his longevity, right?
And how long he was at the top and capable of winning at the highest level in the biggest races. How about the 3 tires at Lucas Oil? Was that a heat race he won? I think
it was a B
or B main, whatever it was.
B-main.
Like that was something else. There's just so many of those styles of stories there. It's just man, it's crazy. It's something it's hard to grasp, hard to deal with it, hard to understand it. Just shocking, devastating, crazy time. Just don't know. Just doesn't seem like it can be the same without him. I don't know. Especially it's gonna be difficult going to the World in September.
Yeah.
It's gonna be difficult at Sanoa this weekend. I think
heck, you were just trying to get him to come.
I literally just the day before yesterday called his car owner / sponsor for this year that had him, Devin Jones, that helped him get a ride, a car and stuff team put together so he could run our series. And of course they didn't, they had some ups and downs, to say the least. The wreck at Ultimate and all that, and had to drop off the series. And I'd heard that they were putting another car together, and I called to see if he'd come, or was coming. Like we make a expected drivers list for every race, right? And as a matter of fact, we were going to put it out this morning, but we haven't yet because it would have literally got lost in the news feed
flood of
Scott. And instead put out a post about honoring Scott. But anyway, point being is, I called Devin to see what their plan was, and they had other stuff going on, as far as like honestly working to put together stuff for Eldora, for the World, a car. So and focusing on that. So kind of tragic, the way it played out 2 days later. It's
crazy.
But it's crazy. It's crazy world we live in. Crazy, life's short and make the most of it. And I think Scott did. He lived. I feel like he lived life to the fullest, right?
Whether definitely on the track. Yeah, definitely. Give you perfect examples. Jesse's story about the pajama pants at Eldora at 2 in the morning.
It's hilarious.
Man, I don't know. It just felt like we needed to come on here and say something. It's so hard with what we do. And, when we make a video, we're focused on a certain, especially like our next time we're recording, something's going to be tomorrow at Sonoya. and we're going to be full on racing, and it just felt like we needed to sit down and talk about it rather than, obviously I know everyone, what did y'all think? Y'all hear about Scott? Well, yeah, obviously we did.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you properly talk about him and memorialize him in one of our videos, our next video that we're going to shoot for our main channel. So I thought, it'd be good to sit down and talk about it just for a minute. And, I don't know, maybe help process. Maybe I'm telling you, these comments, I've been reading them. I hadn't really had time to, I know, man, there's just a lot of stuff in the comments here it's just crazy, how much of an impact, and how much of an influence Bloomquist had. I mean, on me, like personally, like a hero from since I can remember. But then also our sport and how many drivers, have felt that way about him and wanted to beat him, wanted to be him.
Right.
Man, just crazy to think he's gone.
Yeah. Sad day for sure. But we are obviously the sport will, I'm sure there'll be plenty of tributes and in memory of and stuff this weekend, and that'll help people kind of process it, right? Get into a racetrack. Some tonight, some may have, I'm sure there's plenty of people already at Batesville, and being there and amongst fellow racers and every fans and everything will help. I think it'll be difficult, but will help us to be at Sonoa tomorrow. So be part of it, but we'll be there.
Yeah. Our plan, Jesse, do you have anything else? Let me cut you off there.
No.
So,
well, speaking of, that's why Joseph is not on. He couldn't get away, couldn't get out of the shop.
We got to get loaded up and head to Sonoya. We'll be at Sonoya. As far as we go, like I said, we'll have a video on the main channel tomorrow. Check that out. And I don't know, it's just gonna take some adjusting. Can be a new normal, I guess. But like I said, I'm glad we got on here and talked and shared some memories. And thank you to everybody in chat there that shared some memories as well. And with all that said, hope y'all have a good rest of your day and a good weekend and watch some racing somewhere. Anybody got anything else?
That's it.
That's it.
Hey, sorry if we were a little bit glitchy. Jesse, it's about time we went to go live. Jesse got a notification from his internet provider that they were about to do scheduled maintenance and to expect outages. So I'm surprised that we made it this long.
Me too. Starlink was holding on for dear life.
Condolences to the Bloomquist family. That's thoughts and prayers and all that, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like a lot of us are devastated by it. Just, I don't know.
Hey,
that's all I got.
In the famous movie of The Sandlot, famous words of The Sandlot, heroes are remembered, but legends never die.
Yeah.
There you go.
All
right. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see y'all later. Rest in peace, Scott.
Bye, everybody. See ya.